Mind attacks is a term that some people use in spiritual teachings. Joan Tollefson, who is a non-dual teacher, who I recommend, her latest book was called Death, the End of Self-Improvement. And she's written many books, and she's been around for a long time. And she's a very interesting character. She's got an interesting life story. Her teacher was a woman named Toni Packer. And so she puts things out on Facebook from time to time, and she put this thing out today called Mind Attacks. And I think it's worthwhile because it's speaking about thinking. And, you know, I've talked here about thinking recently. You know, I've talked about the working mind and the thinking mind and understanding that and how that can be useful. I've also said here, and other people have said, that the idea that you have of who you are, the concept of a person, a self-image, a personality, is a function of thinking, that you think yourself into existence. You exist as a person in thought. You exist as a person in thought. And so thinking is an important thing to pay attention to. And as I have said and the teachings say, that it's important to understand that you don't think. Thinking happens. But when you identify with thinking, and you think, or you identify with thinking, and you use thinking as a way of knowing, that this becomes problematic. And so this is what she has to say about mind attacks. And she's been somebody who's been practicing and teaching for 40 years. Periodically, I experience mind attacks. Maybe this happens to some of you too. Thoughts bubble up and throw out doubts, perplexing philosophical conundrums, and/or stories such as, I am not totally free yet. That very thought, I am not totally free yet, brings into imaginary existence time, past and future, and the me, the apparently deficient person who seemingly isn't free, who needs to figure out whatever imaginary problem it is currently chewing on, get to the bottom of it, find the magic key, and then presto, finally, in that glorious future moment, I will be permanently, completely, totally, magnificently free at last, never again confused or muddled up. You can identify with this, right? These are, of course, all thoughts about thoughts about thoughts. And after we've been at this for a while, we do know that. But this gets subtle because the knowledge that these are all thoughts about thoughts can just be another thought, which is different from a moment of direct insight or seeing. In my first book, I described one of the most important exchanges I ever had with Toni Packer, who was her teacher. I told Toni that I was in despair because I saw these old habits of mind, these mind attacks, these obsessions and compulsions, but they just kept coming back year after year. Why weren't they gone for good, totally finished? Here's where you have to be really discerning, Toni replied. When you say that you see them, is it really seeing or is it thinking? Thinking about how long they've persisted, how it's never going to end, how it's hopeless, wanting to know how to fix it, that isn't seeing, that's thinking. That's a critical distinction. Awareness is what reveals and transforms. Thought creates the muddles and the imaginary problems. But even when we've realized this, it's one thing to remember it as another bit of accumulated knowledge, and quite another thing to actually see through thinking in the moment and be free of its snarls. There seems to be an addictive habit of picking up the imaginary problems again and again and becoming mesmerized and gripped by them. Maybe it feels safer to identify as little old confused me with my old familiar problem, rather than relaxing into the inconceivable and ungraspable boundlessness of presence, awareness, and non-conceptual experiencing. And when that imaginary problem, that mind attack gets going, the whole body hums along with the ensuing tension in the body. That contracted energy and feeling of unease seems to confirm the story that I am not really free yet. Over the years, I've watched myself take my imaginary problem to one teacher after another, like a precious bundle placed at their feet, hoping for salvation. But the truth is, I know all the answers. After all, I dispensed them, and I long ago discovered the magic key. When thought falls away, and there is simple presence, the problem dissolves. Thought may instantly bring it back by saying, yes, but this keeps happening. Why won't it stop forever? But the only forever is now. It always boils down to now. We can only be free now. That is the magic key. All of our seeking, what we are really seeking, doesn't it come down to peace of mind, wanting to finally be able to relax and just be? It's as if we're pinching ourselves, and the solution is so simple: just stop pinching. Not forever after, but now. How? Well, how do we stop pinching ourselves? First, we must notice that we are pinching ourselves. And this is something we're doing. We notice that it hurts, but that in some way it's compelling. We get curious about it. We notice that willpower doesn't work. We can't make ourselves stop on command. Resisting this habit of pinching ourselves, thinking about it, taking it personally as our personal failure, that all makes it worse. We notice all this. We discover that by simply allowing it to be as it is, not resisting it, not trying to banish it, but simply giving it open, non-judgmental attention, being the space in which it happens, it gradually releases itself. We even notice that it doesn't need to release, that the space is free either way, and that both contraction and expansion are simply momentary appearances in this individual happening in personal events like the weather. So when we're caught up in a mind attack, maybe it's possible to shift attention from thinking to the non-conceptual simplicity of what is: sensations, awareness, presence. Feel the tension in the body as pure sensation or energy, without a storyline or label, without needing it to go away, without judging it. Feel into the spaciousness of the awareness being and beholding it all. Notice that presence awareness is unbound, unencapsulated, free, and that it is here regardless of whether there is tension or no tension, doubts or no doubts, thoughts or no thoughts, pinching or no pinching. Some people say they never experience mind attacks or doubts or seeking in any form anymore. Maybe they are kidding themselves or simply not noticing, or maybe it's true, but who cares? Only the little me cares about how I compare to others. No matter how many times these things reoccur, the only time that matters is now. The only forever is now. The only time we can be free is now. And that freedom is always already here. Thinking about it won't help. And as with learning to swim or ride a bicycle, no one can tell us how to do this shift. We have to feel our way into it ourselves. Words like these offered here may be helpful pointers, but they only offer clues. Everyone must liberate themselves. If I can get away with anything, that because language is never quite right, it's not really a doing. It's more like a discovery or a recognition or waking up or letting go. And there's really no one doing that and no distance to travel. The problem and the one who has it are both imaginary. The problem and the one who has it are both imaginary. Freedom is already present, the freedom for everything to be just as it is. So enjoy the dance with all its wild twists and turns, pleasant and unpleasant. The cycle of a person is a vicious cycle. But see, here's the deal, right? If you listen to what she's saying, there's a very simplistic reality that if that reality is recognized, the whole problem disappears. There's an insidious quality that occurs, and that is that the personality or the mind or the identity that you've been conditioned to be keeps claiming everything. It keeps saying, it keeps inferring, or it keeps proclaiming, or it keeps asserting that I am the one that's going to get enlightened, right? And so when you speak, you're speaking from that one who is trying to be enlightened, or that one who's struggling with being enlightened, right? But the fix, the key, as she said to it, is just noticing there's an awareness of all that. And the awareness of all that is you. And the person is not part of that awareness, right? Not part of that awareness. That's dualistic, right? No. All there is awareness. All there is awareness. And so what you come to see is that even the personality that wants to become enlightened, right, is simply awareness. It's simply awareness. It got cut off from its source when you learned that you as a person were separate from other people, separate from the world, right? It got cut off from the source then. But so the key is to recognize the recognition that the awareness that is always there, in which these things happen, in which thoughts occur, right, is never affected by thoughts, is not thinking anything, is just witnessing, is just there all the time, never changing, never affected by anything.
Uphill battle.
Well, yeah, but you see, that's what the person does. It's an uphill battle. You just created an uphill battle. There's no battle. There's no battle. You see, it's insidious, and and I totally get it, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, that's what she was saying, right? And what she was saying is that, enlightened people still have thoughts, and enlightened people still find themselves identifying with thoughts and misunderstanding a thought to be something that's being seen by consciousness. That's a subtle thing, and it's a very easy thing to happen, right? But again, that's why these classes are important. That's why the teachings are important. That's why it's important to understand how to use meditation. Because as I said when we did the practice earlier, true meditation is simply being the awareness. That's all. Simply being the awareness. How hard can that be when you already are the awareness? You're not changing anything, you see. Simply being the awareness. However, the challenge of simply being the awareness is that you don't know how to do that, right? And you know why you don't know how to do that?
You can't do it. You're already doing it.
That's right. Good. See? She's got all the concepts.
I know it all. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, the concept.
Personality keeps coming out.
Yeah. So to be the awareness, all you have to do is notice it, recognize it. It's not something you do. You can't do it because it's already been done. All you have to do is recognize it, and it's always there to be seen. You know, I've said this many, many times here. This is the thing that has to happen for you to proceed. You've got to be able to recognize awareness. Well, then the mind comes in and says, well, how do I do that, right? Well, it's not something you do. It's something you are. See, that's the thing that makes it so challenging is that the person wants to do something to recognize awareness, right? But the person is nothing but a thought. The person is nothing but a thought. The person cannot do anything at all, not just in terms of recognizing awareness, it cannot do anything at all. Why? Because it doesn't even exist. It cannot do anything at all, right? So the recognition of awareness, the reason that it's subtle and the reason that it's so difficult is because you are what it is that is recognizing awareness. You are that, you see? It's like St. Francis said, what you're looking for is what's looking. What you're looking for is what's looking. Okay? So you are that, and you can't see that even the recognition of that is a concession. To say that you're recognizing it, right? It still sounds as if there's a you and there's something to recognize. That's dualistic, right? Subject object, right? Well, but that's because the language is dualistic, right? But even the recognition of yourself as awareness is only awareness already aware of itself. Even the recognition of yourself as awareness is only awareness already aware of itself. So how do you recognize awareness? The way you recognize awareness is to be awareness because you are awareness. And it is possible to recognize awareness. The recognition of awareness is you could say, when the lights go on, is enlightenment. The recognition of awareness is when the lights go on. It's when you recognize the truth. You recognize that which cannot be denied. It is reality. It is the truth. You are that. It is the one thing that's undeniable. And therefore, it is the truth. It is the heart of the matter. It is the place from which everything begins to make sense, is when you recognize that you are awareness. It's undeniably true. It's the one thing you cannot deny, is it not? It's the one thing you cannot deny is that you are aware, that you exist. And without that, the show's over, right? Without that, there is nothing. There is nothing. Right? And with that, there is everything. And what is that? It's nothing. And it's everything. Because all there is that. All there is that. It's a joke, really. When you know, a lot of people when they wake up, they crack up, they laugh, right? Because you are what you've been trying to be. You are what you've been trying to be. You are what you've been trying to experience. And you're already experiencing it. You're already experiencing what you are as awareness. You're already experiencing it. But then thinking happens. See, and see, that's the habit. You know, we all have been conditioned to believe in thinking as an expression of who we are. We've all been hypnotized, the divine hypnosis. We've all been hypnotized to believe that thinking is the expression of us. I think, right? Like Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, right? That's pretty convincing, right? A lot of people just bought that, right? Wasn't true, but it's so convincing. And the reason it's so convincing is because for most of humanity, I think, therefore I am, is true for them, right? Yes, I think, therefore I am. Well, how do I know I think, therefore I am? Because I'm thinking, right? However, Descartes did not study Buddhism. If he did, or if he studied the Hinduism, he studied non-duality, he would have discovered that it doesn't take much to see clearly if you look, right? That you are not thinking. You are not thinking. You have to look to see what a thought is to know what you think. Therefore, it must not be you. It happens before you're aware of it, right? So you are not thinking. So I think, therefore I am is not true. That's not true. I am, therefore I think is true. I am, therefore I think. But the I am, the consciousness is first, then thought happens. It's like I say to a lot of people that I work with individually, let's take a moment and look and see what's real and what's true, right? Just look, it's obvious. The evidence doesn't lie, and the evidence is the truth, right? So if you look, you can see what's there. There's awareness and what's happening. Is that not so? There's awareness and what's happening. That's what's there. That's what the evidence is. Awareness and what's happening, right? No you, no person. There's no person. Awareness and what's happening. There's no person. So where's the person? Well, what's happening is thinking, and thinking is thinking there's a person. Right? What's happening is thinking, and thinking is thinking there's a person. And we believe that what the thinking is true. But the thinking is not true. Thinking that you're a person is not true. In fact, thinking anything is not true, because thinking is an interpretation of the truth. It's conceptual, and the truth is not conceptual. And the truth is readily and immediately available to all of us, right? But you can't think it. You cannot think the answer to who am I. Can you? No. You can be it, but you can't think it. So this thing that she shared about mind attacks is a description of what happens when you get confused, right? When you get confused and you identify with thinking. You identify with thinking, then the thoughts that arise are, oh, you're not enlightened. It's interesting, you know, the only actual barrier to being enlightened is the thought that you're not. That's the only actual barrier. If you didn't think that you weren't, and you were just allowing yourself to experience what you are as awareness, that's enlightenment. That's why the teachers say there's nothing easier. There is nothing easier than being what you already are. How could there be? There's nothing easier than being what you already are. But human beings have become so completely conditioned, so completely identified with thought, right? That becomes the major obstacle, is to be able to shake off that thought process that keeps you blind. So you have to just keep developing a deeper understanding, and that's why recently I've talked a lot about no free will and predestination, right? Because if you pull that rug out from under the person, the person has no possibility to exist. Because the essential identity of the person, as it knows itself as a doer, a thinker, a doer, right? And so if you could deepen the understanding enough to pull that rug out from under the person disappears. Person disappears. And that's why I say that keep looking at and understanding as deeply as possible the truth of there being no free will, and the truth that there is no, and that everything is predetermined. Those things are true. And as I said earlier when I was talking, if the truth is true, this is something that's very important to understand. If the truth is really true, right? And the truth is that there is no person, there is no time, everything is predetermined, and there's no free will. If that's true, if the truth is true, then you either be that and live that, or you suffer. Because it's going to be true no matter what you think. It's going to be true no matter what you do. You know, it's like gravity is going to keep being gravity no matter what you do. Right? And the truth is going to keep being the truth no matter what you do. So and given what's at stake, you cannot afford to stop pursuing experiencing yourself as that truth. You can't afford it. And if you're here, you're already stuck. Because if predestination is true, it means that you've been predestined to hear this. And once you hear this, if you understand what you heard, you can't go back. You're stuck. You can only go forward. And by the way, there's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to go. Have a good day.